Good morning. This is Dr. Mia Luth. It is 9:41 a.m. Eastern Time, USA, New York. It is 3:25, 2026, so it's March 25th, 2026. Apparently, I had some things slowing down my computer, so I did a little laptop maintenance. Hopefully, that improves what my camera is doing. Uh, so today, I'm I'm going to talk about some things, but I'm going to reiterate the reason I'm doing this is because there there is a there's reality, human pro athlete reality in the National Hockey League. And for those who didn't know, okay, every single ice hockey club, I'm gonna leave out the Mammoth and the Kraken because they're still really young, but I'm including the Vegas Golden Knights though. Guaranteed, every single one of those NHL franchises have had a situation where a guy comes across as, you know, being able to play a certain position and has certain qualities and characteristics that fit with the club and their vision. However, that player gets signed and certain things happen. It could be life changes with the player. It could be that the club needs to change their vision or their system a little bit. It could be that it turns out as this player gets more experience, a little more defensive minded rather than offensive minded, and the team really needs somebody who's offensive minded. There are tons and tons and tons of things. Hello. Yes. Good. Yes, I'll be there. Okay, great. Thank you. Bye. The dentist. My life is filled with medical appointments, constant. Which I'll just do a health update. One of the things that has gone wrong with my teeth is severe dry mouth, which happens for a variety of reasons, but mostly it's medication that I take. So I did actually see two doctors yesterday, and my ear, nose, and throat doctor is prescribing me something that helps me produce saliva because having dry mouth all the time, I do use the xylitol, and yes, I need extra help making saliva, so it can ruin your teeth. Uh, so anyway, it also causes dry cough too. So where was I? Anyway, there, every single franchise, every single one of them, it is a normal happenstance in the National Hockey League. And I'm trying to let people know some expectations, okay? And the player gets there, and it's just no matter if the player gives it the good honest try, and the team gives it the good honest try, and you know, it may have looked like and seemed like it was going to be a good fit, but certain things happen, and it may not be. We don't know until you try. And oftentimes, it isn't anybody's fault. Some people really need to let go of blame. Sometimes it's not a mistake that a player signed with a certain club. All right? It's not the GM's fault. It's not coaching. It's just certain things happen that way. And as the team and the player progress together, certain things, you know, are known. And then there are plenty of amicable trades in the NHL. Come as a surprise, but some are fairly amicable because GMs are always looking. This is just true. Okay, there's not a single GM in the NHL who quite literally does nothing. Some of you are using terminology that is, it's just false. It's false. There's not a single GM that's getting paid money who quite literally does nothing. That's just not the way things work. Your perception of it is incorrect. And, for the younger ones, just, yeah, that's not true, kids. Don't listen to anybody that's saying that. All right. GMs are always looking around. GMs are aware sometimes of what other GMs are looking for. And sometimes, a good trade can happen because, a player might be, play better over here and have good reason, might be a little happier and might fit into that system. But the player that's, the other GM has, right, is, you needed somebody who was a little more defensive, has one of those. All right. So these things are common in the National Hockey League. I don't come from a place of just following one club. I'm a one franchise kind of gal. Okay. But, I pay attention to any kind of ice I can get my eyes and ears on. And most of it is centered around the National Hockey League. And there are some people who have some thoughts and opinions, and you express them. Okay. But a lot of them are not based on the athletic mind. Okay. Some of you, maybe you may not be athletes, so you may not understand the athletic way of thinking. Okay. So by athlete, I don't mean someone who gets paid for it, because there's plenty of people who are athletes who don't get paid for it. Okay. I mean someone who, from a kid, who was, active and played in sports or did something that, kept them active and moving, and, or kept them interested in a certain sport, and who pursued it and may still play it for fun in rec leagues or whatever as adults. Okay. So what I'm saying, and I am saying this, but I'm not going to point anyone out or call anyone out. What I'm going to say is there are some people who do a lot of talking about the Winnipeg Jets and participating in chats. Okay. And I've been paying attention to that for years, plural. And I'm 100% sure that some aren't athletes. And you don't have that athletic frame of mind. It's just true. And regular human psychology, is not applicable to pro athletes and pro coaches and generally pro clubs, pro professional and semi pro. It just is not the case. Some of these things really they don't apply. Right? This is a particular kind of sports psychology, and to the extent of thinking pro, even if you haven't gotten there yet. Okay? It is common. Every single ice hockey club, every single one of them, all the way up to including the Vegas Golden Knights. The two more recent we're going to leave out because they're still young teams. Okay, in that sense. Okay, it happens all the time in the National Hockey League that a team may acquire a certain player and may have certain expectations and understandings, and the player may be all good with that and wants to play and wants to play that role, but you don't really know until you try. And it gets to the point where it's kind of like, well, it might be better to trade because the team may get something that's a player that's closer to what they kind of need, and that player goes on a team where not only they're wanted, but their kind of play fits into their system a little better. You just don't know. I've seen a lot of certain Winnipeg Jets fans in press mention the word accountability. But some of those same fans also say, you're just making up excuses. Okay, some of you are also just making up excuses. Excuses to lose, excuses to have the team give up on itself, excuses to, look for blame when there is no blame. If if some went back and looked at everything that they've written and contributed, you would see and understand what I'm saying. Okay? Some of the same ones who say that people are making excuses for Mr. Shoveldayoff. Well, he's a paid GM in the NHL. And he's had time to learn and do certain things, but he does not operate alone. Okay? He's got scouts and other, assistant GMs and all sorts of other input. And it's very easy to say, oh, well, he made all these mistakes in the summer. Maybe True North does not see them as mistakes. Maybe the coaches do not see them as mistakes. Okay. That's your definition. Yours, not everybody else's. If you understood what Mr. Cheveldayoff said, okay, word salad, we will learn to comprehend basic English and it won't be word salad. He point blank said that he had to do some temporary signings in the summer because the guys that they were developing to play with the Jets weren't quite ready yet. Now, I will never apologize for speaking the truth. The one thing I will say about goaltending, which is where really shine. Okay. In the case of tandem goalies, yes, riding the hot goalie does make a little more sense. However, in the case of a very, right, where you know you have a starter and you know you got a backup, which is how the Winnipeg Jets are set up. The only thing that I will say is that it is never smart hockey to let the backup goalie get game cold, because that backup goalie can practice a lot. But there is a difference between practice and even virtual practice. It can simulate live game and real life on the ice. Okay, starters sometimes need to be okay. Whoa, we are really back a little. Right, kind of hell, but right, I get it. But you need mental and physical breaks too. And in the case, just simply in the case that if Connor Hellebuck were injured, we would definitely want Eric Comrie to not be game cold. And I don't care what they say out loud, it does make a difference. Okay? It just does. There is no replacement for in game, on the job learning and training and other things. There just isn't, especially not for goaltenders. Skaters and shooters who are good during in game play at scoring goals, sometimes because of the fact the shootouts are not like in game goal scoring, they are sometimes not very good at shootouts. And that makes perfect freaking sense. And this is a truth and a reality in the National Hockey League and has been for quite some time. Those two things are not the same. Okay? In game, shooter can pass back and forth. Shooter has help splitting the D and, freezing the goalie. You don't get any of that. You can't take a rebound. You got one shot, and that is all. Shootouts and in-game play are very, very different. I'm speaking NHL truths. Some of that frustration that some of you had would go away if you understood what I am saying. Your expectations that just because, right, they're good. Natural goal scorers on, NHL ice during regular play does not extend to shootouts for those reasons. So just know that trying to tell Mr. Shovel Dayoff that he's made all these mistakes is not your job. It is. That's for, the people who work for the club. That's for True North Sports and Entertainment. That's for some others to ascertain. Okay? He made the best decisions he could make given all circumstances. And sometimes there's a player who gets brought in and the kind of scoring that they were doing is decreased. And sometimes you don't understand the vision of the hockey club. The Winnipeg Jets still have a plan, and the Winnipeg Jets still aren't aiming for the Stanley Cup. But right now, forget the Stanley Cup. They're aiming at the playoffs. And they still have not been shoved out of playoff contention. There is no guarantee that they're going to get in the first round and lose. Okay? Because regular season ice hockey is different from postseason ice hockey. Okay? Fewer penalties are called. The officials tend to, put the whistles away. They still call things, but it's not as much. Okay? There's no shootouts. And you don't get a 5-minute overtime. You got a 20-minute overtime. There are teams that have played 2 full games, 3 overtime, right? Legs get tired. Things start to slow down. Back and forth fire wagon hockey stops happening at a certain point. Because neither team can maintain it. And that is usually where, if there's going to be a mistake, that's where it's going to happen. You cannot compare regular season to postseason because it just does not happen the same because of those factors. So a team may do really, really well in the regular season, but get swept by a team in the postseason. The Winnipeg Jets have had situations where they have actually played better than the other team, but some kind of fluky bounce allowed the other team one goal up, and they ran out of time to make that up. There are times when other teams have played the Winnipeg Jets, and they have been the better team on ice, but the Jets won. This is another reason why this sport at this level is so difficult and mentally challenging. Some tiny little fluky bounce could give a team just enough momentum to score a goal at an opportune time and win. That's difficult up here. There are some who will say, well, why haven't you given, you got to give these kids a chance, Barron, for example. Yes. And how many of you were all upset that Coach Scott Arno had Barron take a certain face-off rather than Jonathan Taves? How many of you were all upset during that game? If you follow every single game and you saw that game, how many of you were upset that the coach let Barron take that face-off rather than Jonathan Taves? And the coach did very much explain why when he was asked in post-game comments. Because that's Barron's side of the ice. Jonathan Taves was taking care of face-offs on the other side of the ice. He gave Barron a chance. Some of you may have some difficulties in life, and you just got to find things to complain about. But I disagree with quite a few of those who discuss and talk a lot about Winnipeg Jets ice hockey. Because I can just tell you only understand one market, and you only understand what you think you see with your eyes. And the pro athletes are better at talking ice hockey than some of the rest of you. I'm 100% sure. I understand why Nyquist was signed, and that was temporary because, right, a short-term contract. Because there's a certain couple players who they were hoping from the Moose could come up and play this season, but they just weren't quite ready. And if you don't have to shove a player into that kind of stress and pace and other things, you have time to help them ease into their position, then you use that time. So it didn't quite work out the way neither Nyquist or the club thought it would. But that has happened to quite a few players. Some of you want to be argumentative. And I understand. However, when I say things, certain things I say are actually true. But yet, some of you want to come back with me. So if that's how you want. No, the truth is, in the last 10 years, the average age of players on each of the Stanley Cup winning teams is 28.5, 28 and a half years old, which means there's veterans on the team. Kyle Connor is not over 30. There are plenty of Stanley Cup winning, trustworthy, reliable NHL players who are 33 and older. If you all want to pretend like you know, maybe you should understand the game a little better. Pro athletes don't think like most of you. The amount of know-how that's hockey know-how, NHL hockey know-how, that's in the Winnipeg Jets is a lot. A lot. Thousands of man hours. And Scheifele's feeling pretty good about his game, which is good news. And these guys have not given up on themselves. See, an ice hockey team that has quit in it will never win a Stanley Cup. Ever. I watched the Washington Capitals do that. 97, 99, somewhere around there. I watched the Vancouver Canucks do that. There's crying in ice hockey. There may not be crying in baseball, but there's crying in ice hockey for a variety of reasons. But there's no quit in ice hockey. You never know in today's NHL until that final whistle blows. And if any club should know that, it should be the Winnipeg Jets fans. Because of the Manitoba Miracle. It does bode well that over the weekend, these guys opened up a bottle of comeback sauce in both games, which is something that they were having difficulty with during a large portion of the season. Okay? A team that can compete for the Stanley Cup is going to be a team that has no quit and has a bottle of comeback sauce. Because no matter what you do, another team may just get the jump on you, and you're going to have to work your way back. Regular season ice hockey is not the same as postseason ice hockey. Regular season in regulation ice hockey is not the same as shootouts scoring. Okay? No one should ever assume that a natural goal scorer who scores well during in-game is going to be a really good shootout scorer. Never ever make that assumption. These are truths of the National Hockey League. There are limits to what any GM can do based on salary cap, based on who won't come to this club and who will, based on age, based on what the system is looking at. Okay, based on how well they're progressing through seasons to get themselves in a spot where they can make the playoffs to get that shot at the cup. Don't worry about the Stanley Cup right now, people. We're not there yet. Keep aiming at the playoffs. And also, those of you who want to be fans of a certain type, it's fine. But, for any one of you who've written, oh, stop talking about the playoffs. Why? Some of us want to talk about the playoffs. Hey, you're allowed to fan the way you want. Well, some of us want to talk about the playoffs. I don't think it's wise for Eric Comrie to get game cold. Do I think that Eric Comrie can replace Connor Hellebuyck? Yeah. Fuck no, I don't. But he is a good backup goalie. And as much as Connor might want to play, Connor also has to realize that even he should sometimes take that mental break, take that physical break, and let Combs play, because going 11 games without playing is putting your goalie in a situation, putting your friendly backup goalie in a situation where if you were to get injured, it would take a couple games to get back into, hot game mode. And you may not be able to take that time instead of being able to go in and just kind of be ready. This is a normal thing in the National Hockey League, and it is hockey smart. There are plenty of you, bring the guys up. Okay. Yes, that was part of the plan. Hi, but they need to have spots for them, roster spots. And just putting any old dude on waivers, you understand? That's a team loss. That is the last resort. There are guys, younger guys, who are genuinely excited in their way, right, to be on the same team as 3-time Stanley Cup winning future Hall of Famer Jonathan Toews, who is not a piece of trash. The situation with Gus Nyquist, I'm absolutely sure that Nyquist nor the club nor the team really thought that it would be like this, but it is. Get over it. Gus Nyquist also has some experience, and like I said, he's probably got somebody under his wing. Learning from a pro ice hockey player in game and being around them pays dividends in the future. You can think whatever you want about me, but those of you ignoring me, that's on you. Because you just want to keep dogging people and you just want to keep downing people and you just want to keep looking for blame in situations where there really isn't that much blame. Every GM in the last 20 years has had a situation where they acquire a player for certain reasons and just things just don't seem to fit or work out, and it's really nobody's fucking fault. Accountability. GMs don't see into the future, and neither do any of you. And don't be afraid. See, some of you, you're like, oh, why is the coach afraid to do this and do that? But it's the same, some of you are saying, oh, well, we're just going to lose to the Avalanche. You're afraid of the Avalanche, and you should not. The pro athletes who comprise the Winnipeg Jets, I doubt they're afraid of the Avalanche. Sometimes it's not fear that drives why certain things are done. Okay? Certain contracted players need to get a certain kind of minutes and they need to do this. And yes, some of them need to be on the same line as some of the younger ones as a guide. I think one of the assistant coaches said it. It's somewhere on the website. Use the veterans as your GPS. I know, and I'm not making excuses for anyone. But there are some of you, some of you actually putting slander online. Which is not the best place to put it. It is an absolute falsehood that Mr. Cheveldayoff, the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets, has done nothing. Do you work for the Jets? Where are you getting your information? Is it a reliable source? Is it an employee who works for Mr. Cheveldayoff? there are some press who try to come up with reasoning as to why coaches make certain decisions. Why specifically this year, this season, this coaching group. And here and there, I can tell that you can't think like a professional athlete or a professional coach. Because while that might fall into just regular, average, everyday human psychology, which I do have a degree in, by the way, it does not, in fact. Pro ice hockey players are outliers in the bell curve of regular human psychology. We have future Winnipeg Jets playing on the Moose right now. Isak Rosen is working to fit in with the system that can take many games, 20 maybe even more. Winning a Stanley Cup is a patience situation. Run and gun hockey does not win any team a Stanley Cup. And when I cheer for the Jets, I'm cheering for the whole freaking organization, including the Moose and anybody else, right? I do suggest that, True North Sports and Entertainment, and maybe, at the very least, the Upper Deck, the management, do take a good look at all the different positions. And it might be that, maybe the assistant GM should be the GM. I mean, they might just need to move some, depending on how people have learned and progressed and what some are better at than others. The other thing is, I mean, if you were to ask a panel of press who just have been, following the NHL and have talked different teams, different, divisions, different conferences, some questions. Okay, they're the ones who, know a little better and can tell you kind of, well, in the NHL, it's kind of normal. When it comes to goalies, I do get a little protective. I do get a little finicky because I've just seen and heard some comments and other things and articles and people talking that just absolutely has nothing to do with what a pro hockey goalie does, including backups or how they think. And I'm adamant about saying, hello, AHL, at least to the AHL hockey goalies, particularly with the Moose. Don't be in a big hurry. The better prepared you are, going up and down, moving laterally, understanding pace, understanding, right, cardiovascular, all kinds of things. And mentally, learn to just put up those walls. And don't look at the press. Because they're a bunch of non-goalies who are going to want to try and get in here. learn. If you don't automatically have one, great. Help yourself by learning to either ignore all that or just be numb to it, or, you know, you see what I'm saying? Try not to. And if it's coming from within your club, speak the fuck up. Be an asshole about it. And if you have a hard time doing that, write it the fuck down and hand it to the fucking coach or hand it to your captain or whatever. Or tell one of the alternate captains, like talk to someone and have one of your buddy teammates who's more outspoken say it. Don't let that fester. Okay? I'm cheering on the whole organization, which includes Mr. Chevaldale and the scouts and all the people who help them. People help them with their blades and people who help them, with their equipment and all that kind of stuff. Here's the simple truth in the National Hockey League, whether you like it or not. The Winnipeg Jets are going to win as a team and they're going to lose as a team. How about some of you just be the seventh player and understand that cheering them on does not at all mean in any way whatsoever that you are good with mediocre. Because, number one, that's a freaking false statement. That is an overreach assumption that apparently miserable people who want company being miserable want to use. And I don't. Go Jets.